I'm Vinay Guddye, Director of Global Outreach at the Economic Development Board of Mauritius. It's a pleasure today for me to be presenting to you the investment and trade opportunities for Mauritius and take you along the pathway of Mauritius, where we started, where are we going, and how Mauritius could be meaningful for your trade development in this part of the world, that is the Eastern Southern Africa and the Indian Ocean as well. So to start, I will do a short presentation, about 15 minutes on Mauritius, and then we will have a short movie where we're going to showcase, summarize the presentation in a way, and afterwards I'll be joining up my colleagues, Mr. Girish Bhaktavan Singh, Director of Manufacturing at the Economic Development Board of Mauritius, and Mr. Arvind Krishna, who is a strategic advisor to the Economic Development Board, where we will be answering your questions. So the EDB was enacted in 2017. Right, just an overview, a macroeconomic view of Mauritius. Mauritius is a small island developing state with a population of about 1.3 million people. Some of the stats here are 2019 because we're trying to show where Mauritius was in 2019 economically. 2020 and 2021, as you know, has been impacted by the COVID pandemic, but we do expect 2022 onwards Mauritius to be back on track in the economic growth pattern and the same stability that we have been achieving for the past 32 years before COVID impacted. 2019, currently Mauritius is one of the few investment grade countries on the continent, along with Botswana and Namibia. So Mauritius is rated Baa2 by Moody's rating, investment grade country, jurisdiction of Africa, and a GDP per capita above 12,000, placing Mauritius as a high income economy. Just to take you through the evolution of the economic growth of Mauritius, back in 1968 at our independence, the GDP per capita for Mauritius stood at 200. Right, this will show you the diversification of the economy. Remember, back at independence in the late 1960s, early 1970s, it was mainly the cane industry, the sugar industry, that contributed to 75% of the economy. Right now, the agriculture only represents 2% of the GDP, and you can see the diversification of the Mauritius. As you can see, why Mauritius? When you ask yourself the question, you're going to look at why the Mauritian jurisdiction is a meaningful jurisdiction for you to do business in this part of the world. We all know that Africa is a continent full of potential. Asia is already moving leaps and bounds ahead to where it was 10, 20 years ago. We've seen the rapid rise of the Chinese economy. We've seen the rapid rise of the Indian economy, and many thought leaders are saying that Africa is where China was 30 years ago and where India was 20 years ago. So potentially Africa is at the dawn of a fast economic growth. And rightly so, because if we look at the African continent, 60% of the untapped arable land, 30% of the world minerals reserves, certainly we can imagine that Africa's growth is ahead of us, and the COVID pandemic has potentially awoken the need for Africa to create value within the continent, to ensure sourcing within the continent. And for Africa to be able to do that, it needs to absorb international technologies. It needs to be able to absorb manufacturing capabilities of the West, the know-how of the East, Japan, China, India, and other countries. And to do that, it needs a jurisdiction to be able to transfer the knowledge, the capabilities, the technologies, the funds, and also to structure investment onto the African continent. And that's exactly what Mauritius has been trying to do for the past 10 to 15 years. It's been trying to establish a jurisdiction that is conducive to do business, conducive to invest on the African continent, conducive to trade with Africa, conducive to promote the economic emancipation of the African continent. And that is why you will find that Mauritius is ranked first in Africa in all these rankings. So this shows you why Mauritius is conducive. If you want to come to a jurisdiction and try to tap into the opportunity to do business between Africa, Europe, Asia, or anywhere else, Mauritius could be the ideal place to consider such initiatives. Also, why the Mauritius advantage? We have a corporate tax rate of 15%, making Mauritius a low and efficient jurisdiction for you to do business. And also, you do have a certain partial exemption regime on global business sectors, mainly oriented towards doing business offshore. And that's where you're going to see your effective tax is going to be 3%. Again, to ensure that companies are very efficient and effective when they're trying to do business through the Mauritian jurisdiction. You have a workforce that is bilingual, French and French professionals and English, that allows you to reach both Francophone and Anglophone Africa, which means most of the continent. You have qualified multi-skilled workforce based in Mauritius, and I think most important is the ease of doing business. Right, if we look at trade with the world, why Mauritius again? From Mauritius, you can reach 70% of the world population with a preferential tariff approach. If you look at Mauritius, part of Africa, signatory to the AFCFTA, and also Mauritius recently signed a comprehensive economic partnership agreement with India, which has a preferential tariff tax agreement part of that SECPA, and Mauritius also have a full free trade agreement with China on over around 8,000 line items tariff free. Also preferential trade agreement with Pakistan, with free trade agreement with Turkey, and I think most importantly also we have an interim economic partnership agreement with the EU that allows you to have preferential entry on certain items in the EU as well, and AGOA with the USA as well. When you look at all these bilateral and multilateral instrument agreement that has been put in place by Mauritius, it shows using the Mauritian jurisdiction gives you a very efficient entry to 70% of the world population. That's another reason, that is another aspect of what Mauritius has been trying to establish for the past 10 years to make Mauritius an attractive jurisdiction for trading or doing business from Mauritius. Right, so just to summarize, Mauritius has preferential market access to 70% of the world population. Mauritius is the second largest woolmark network supplier to the world. Just to show you here, the importance of that statement is to show that quality manufacturing can be done in Mauritius. And despite being a small island in the middle of the ocean, Mauritius is actually quite connected, enabling proper trading to be done from Mauritius, hence the logistic platform and the free port zone in Mauritius, which is very vibrant with international institutions such as Decathlon from France having set base in Mauritius to serve the African and the Middle East market. Mauritius also is a leading home of private equity funds investing in Africa, and it is ranked third in terms of overall EU country. The new development strategy of Mauritius, it's about accelerating what already is the core of the economic sectors of Mauritius, which is the cane industry, the textile manufacturing, fishing, hospitality, real estate, and the financial hub. And we diversify into the new sectors which are considered as the high growth sectors currently in Mauritius: medical devices, pharmaceutical, energy and transport and logistics, the free port, for example, and the innovative sectors where we are putting a lot of emphasis to drive the attributes and enablers for its eventual success, which is biotechnology, fintech, artificial intelligence, research, and international intellectual regional headquarters for Mauritius as well. So about setting up your headquarters to manage your various operations in Mauritius. Right, how to come and invest in Mauritius, how to set up in Mauritius. The EDB is your one point of contact, so we will walk you through the different stages, the different process of setting up in Mauritius. As I said earlier, within 2 hours you can set up your structure in Mauritius. But what if your business is totally an innovative, disruptive, innovative product or service. So to that end, the EDB has launched the regulatory sandbox license, where even if we don't have the legal framework for your investment, for your operation to work, the EDB can assist you with a regulatory sandbox license that will give you the legal framework to operate for the first 2 years before, in collaboration with EDB, we set up the right appropriate frameworks and policies. And we need financial centers, we need economic hubs to promote aggressively flow of funds and investment towards projects on the African continent. And if we look at different parts of the world, Asia, it has several financial hubs doing that. It's got Hong Kong, it's got Shanghai, it's got Singapore. The Middle East will have Abu Dhabi and Qatar and Bahrain. And if you look at Europe, they will have Frankfurt, they will have Paris. England has got London, and you have New York for the USA. But if you look at Africa, there's no properly recognized financial hub actively and aggressively promoting flow of funds, promoting investment on the continent. And that's where Mauritius wants to fill that gap, promoting flow of funds, promoting trade for the African continent. So this just shows you the flow of funds from Mauritius to the rest of the world. You can see that the density right now is heavily towards the Asian continent, but recently we have seen significant increase on the African continent. Already about 9% of the flow of funds transiting through the Mauritius International Financial Center goes to the African continent, and to date the capital flow amounts to $36.4 billion that has been structured from Mauritius to the African continent. Working closely with our colleagues in Ghana, in Senegal, in Madagascar, in Kenya, trying to work towards setting up special economic zones. And more recently, it is about developing manufacturing centers of excellence, trying to go up the value chain of doing manufacturing within our borders so that we can supply each other and guarantee a supply security for the region. This is what the COVID-19 has taught us, because at the beginning of COVID-19, it was impossible for small island developing states like Mauritius and the least developed countries of Africa, 36 out of the 46 LDCs in the world are in Africa. And you can imagine at the beginning of the pandemic, they couldn't source basic materials to provide for the safety and the well-being of the populations in Africa. So as a result of which, I think now Africa is more geared towards a globalization strategy. That is, how do we promote intra-regional trade? And I think AFCFTA is coming at the right time. And that is where Mauritius can play an important role to work with several African states and ensuring the adoption of technologies on the continent to go up the value chain, establish manufacturing capabilities on the continent, grow trade, improve connectivity, improve the flow of skills, technologies, and capabilities such that Africa can deliver on its promise. And this is where Mauritius wants to be. This is where Mauritius is placing itself as a partner to the continent, to the rest of the world, in promoting the development and trade on the continent. And also to close up with, why not doing business in Mauritius and living in Mauritius? After all, it is a piece of heaven. It is the perfect place for you to live, work, play, and retire, and work in the Mauritian lifestyle. There are different ways for you to consider working from Mauritius. You could come to Mauritius as an investor, you could come to Mauritius as a professional, you could come to Mauritius as an innovator with an innovator's occupation permit at an investment of only $40,000, or you could come to Mauritius as a self-employed as well. There are other ways of coming to Mauritius. You could come as a tourist, long-term holiday on the premium visa package, which you can, of course, know more on the EDB webpage as well. Or you could also come to Mauritius as a student to study in one of the high-profile universities in Mauritius. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this has given you a very good understanding of Mauritius, how we're trying to establish Mauritius as the perfect and ideal platform for doing business through Mauritius, linking the African continent to the rest of the world, linking Mauritius to Asia, linking Mauritius to Europe, and linking Mauritius to the USA through the Mauritian jurisdiction. As I said earlier, 70% of the world population could be tapped through the Mauritian jurisdiction. Thank you for your attention, and we're looking forward to your questions.